Hello, everyone. Tonight we are starting the regular meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission. It is December 8th, 2020, and I'll turn it over to Chair Faruzan to get us started.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 8th, 2020 meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission. I now call this meeting to order. The first item, I'll combine them. First couple items, I would make a motion to do a adoption of the agenda, and as we vote on that, we'll also do the roll call. Is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Sarah seconds.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Sarah. So I'm going to go through each of the commissioners one by one. As I call you, please say your name and affirm that you are present and that you how you vote on adopting the meeting agenda. Commissioner Pino.
I am here and I vote to adopt the agenda.
Commissioner Sarah.
Here, I vote aye.
Commissioner Abdi.
Commissioner Abdi present. I vote to carry the order.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Commissioner Jacobson is present and I vote to carry the order.
Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Jackson is present and I vote as well to adopt the order.
Commissioner Sparks.
Commissioner Sparks is present and I vote to adopt the order.
All right, and I'm Commissioner Faruzan, present, and I also vote to aye on adopting the agenda. The next item is the acceptance of the meeting minutes. In hindsight, I should have combined all of this, but I'll right now I'd take a motion I'll make a motion and look for a second on someone to for accepting the meeting minutes.
Second from Commissioner Pino.
All right. I'll now go around. When I call you, if you have any edits or anything to make note of, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, please make your vote on accepting the meeting minutes from our September meeting. Commissioner Sarah.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Pino.
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi.
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks.
Aye.
And I, Commissioner Faruzan, also vote aye. All right. Now we're moving on to public comment. Ms. Lee, if you will accept open it up to public comment.
Absolutely, Chair Faruzan. So today we are limiting public comment to 2 minutes. So I'll give you a gentle reminder when you're nearing your time and then ask you to conclude your comments. The first caller that we had, phone number ends in 8793. 8793, you'll just have to press *6 to unmute yourself and begin your comment. And if you would not like to make a comment, that is totally fine. You can just remain muted and we'll move on.
Hi, my name is Chuck Turchik. I live in Phillips. 2 comments. First, welcome to the new commissioners. You should know this commission might be unlike other city boards and commissions. It really is a working commission. Don't let it take up all of your free time, but realize that it is an opportunity for significant involvement on some very important high-profile issues. At first, it'll seem like there's so much to learn about the commission's work and about civilian oversight in general, but I encourage you not to sit back and remain silent, waiting until you might feel more confident. Frequently, a new perspective, an outside perspective, is exactly what's needed. So state your views about what you think the PCOC should be doing, what you'd like it to do. It'll only make the commission stronger and more effective. And remember that you are an independent body. You are not part of the OPCR. You are not part of the Civil Rights Department. Earlier this year, a commissioner raised an issue and was told by the director of the Civil Rights Department that she was new and wasn't aware of all the documents. She was basically told to keep quiet. Don't fall for that. In President-elect Biden's words, that's malarkey. You are an independent body, and it's your role to raise questions, okay? Second, rumor has it that Chair Feruzan is leaving the PCLC at the end of the year. And I just wanted to thank him for serving on the commission. In particular, I wanted to mention two things. Frequently, I've had problems in getting answers to my questions from the OPCR, from the MPD, from the mayor's office, from the city council. And Chair Feruzan offered to step in and ask the questions on my behalf himself. And I really appreciate the effort that he did in that regard. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And second, I've always had a constant refrain that I don't think the city officials give the PCLC enough respect. And I think they are starting to ask for input more and consulting more with the PCLC. And I think that is because of Chair Feruzan's insistence in this last period of time that they do so. So I thank Chair Feruzan for your service on the commission and making the city officials see the importance of this commission. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to the caller whose phone number ends in 4121. *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Dave Bicking. I want to welcome the new commissioners also, and I want to second what Chuck said regarding Commissioner Feruzan and the work you've done, and we'll miss you, and I appreciate it, and just as Chuck said, so I shouldn't repeat that. Similarly, in welcoming the new commissioners, I second pretty much everything Chuck said. We'll become somewhat familiar. I'm a regular attender at the PCOC since it started back in 2013. I was a member of the Civilian Review Authority back in 2008 to 2010. So I've been following civilian review for a long, long time. I'm also an active member with Communities United Against Police Brutality, which is CUAPB. We do a lot of research and policy work ourselves. Some of it, I guess, in that sense, overlaps with some of your charge. We have been following civilian review. We've been keeping the statistics. We frequently request information from the city and get that, and oftentimes information that you wouldn't have otherwise. So anyhow, we look forward to your service. We have often offered, and I think can again, to do anything we can to help you in this commission. You get some orientation. We've offered many times to set up an orientation for members in whatever area that they would like to discuss. We've never been taken up on that offer, but I hope maybe you will, because we could help on a lot of issues, history, policy issues, statistics, and so on. So we're here to help if we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next caller, phone number ends in 0761. If you'd like to make a public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody, commissioners. This is Heidi Ritchie, and I work in the mayor's office. I just wanted to welcome the new commissioners and tell you all that I'm excited to work with you. I am the person in the office right now that's point person for public safety, as the person that held that position prior, Jen White, is now in the Office of Violence Prevention. So we will have a new point person shortly, but for the time being, it's me. And so I just wanted to make sure you all knew that, and also, again, welcome our commissioners. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next phone number is 1829. 1829, if you'd like to make a public comment, *6.
Oh, sorry, my phone goes weird. Okay, my name is Emma Peterson. Like Chuck and Dave, I have been regularly attending PCOC meetings for the past some years after my sister and I were harassed and retaliated against by the Minneapolis Police Department while in their youth program. And while I appreciate Chuck and Dave's kindness, I will not be so kind as I was when the last two commissioners were appointed, and I'll give you all of the new commissioners the same message. If you are here just to build your resume, then please leave, because this position is a point where people can make change. It's a position that has a lot of opportunity to make changes in the police department that are very, very much needed. And if this is just a box that you want to tick off, or it's just something to make you look good, then I will ask you to please step down right away, because that's not what we needed. We need change. And I've been through the runaround with almost every department in the city of Minneapolis. And it's just not what we need. So I hope that you are here to make action and to create positive changes. With that being said, I will echo what Chuck and Dave said about Commissioner Peterson. You've been excellent. Thank you for all of your work. And it's going to be, I'm sad to see you go. So thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, phone number ends in 5764. 5764, if you'd like to make a public comment, *6 to unmute yourself. Hearing no comment, we'll move on to the phone number ending in 7046.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Good. I'm no longer muted. My name's Paul Bossman. I have been attending meetings of this group for almost 3 years now, since my two goddaughters were in the the Minneapolis Police Explorers program, and were harassed, and we heard a lot of great stories about officers behaving badly. Went through the process of complaining to the chain of command, complaining to IA, complaining to you guys, having very little happen over the course of several years. Got involved with community groups opposing police brutality, got involved with suing the city for withholding information from those groups. What I would like to say to you first is that you have the opportunity to advocate on behalf of the community to keep people from following that same trail and from making it the only way to interact with the city constructively is through a judge. One of the things I would like to suggest is this meeting used to, at least during COVID, used to include a video component, and it would be nice to be able to see each other. If we could get that reinstated, that would be a first step in establishing a rapport. Thank you.
I believe that is everyone on the line who was in queue to make public comment, but if there is anyone that I missed, please unmute yourself now by pressing *6 and we'll hear your comment. Great, hearing none, I'll return it to Chair Fruzan.
Thank you. Thank you all for the public comment. I appreciate your kind words and your welcoming the new commissioners. I've had the chance to meet with all the new commissioners, and I feel like I know the current commissioners pretty well, and I can assure you that everyone cares deeply about improving public safety and improving MPD there. I know that we might not always agree with each other, and we might not always agree we might not all agree with each other on the ways of getting there, but I think that with continued dialogue, we will continue to get there. I think that we've hopefully improved in building relationships with community partners. I'd really like to thank Commissioner Pinow for his work in outreach in the past year, along with our city staff. I think this is the most diverse candidate pool we've ever had, not just looking at it in terms of race, but looking at it in terms of ward, and looking at it in terms of not, as Commissioner Sarah had, we might say, having way too many lawyers on the commission. We're getting people from from all parts of the city. And I think for the first time, we're getting people who have family members and who they themselves have had direct interaction with MPD, not as someone who works in the system, but as someone who is impacted by MPD as a community member, and impacted in negative ways. And I know I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that this was a contentious appointment process. And I think I know the city staff worked hard to get this candidate pool, and having talked to everyone, I think that everyone is committed and brings the experience that is valuable to this commission. I don't think that there is any occupational limits to who should be able to serve on this commission. Everyone brings in a different perspective, and I think, and as Mr. Turchik pointed out, I don't think that anyone's lack of experience with the PCOC or our work in the past matters, because we've built, I think, a good framework on which new commissioners can step in and make an immediate impact and be heard. And I'm confident that that's going to continue. So with that, I'd like to give our commissioners a chance to, our new commissioners, a chance to introduce themselves. And there's one more thing I do want to point out. During this process, we had the opportunity to, or we were the beneficiary of not only such a diverse candidate pool, but I think expanded engagement with the PCOC. So I know that there are a lot of people who applied who were not able to, were not selected to serve on the commission. And unfortunately, there are only so many seats, but I do want to point out that just by participating, you can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than a member of the commission. I think one of the most important people in the past few years who was not a member of the commission was a woman by the name of Kathy Check. She was a community member who prompted us. Some of the regulars might remember she kind of prompted us to look into the city's MPD's mental health response, and she really helped guide us from what we thought was potentially the right way to go forward, which was more training and police officers who had special training to be a crisis intervention team. She really pointed us in the direction of the co-responder model, and I know City Council is moving funding away from that now, but that program was extremely successful, and I think made an impact on thousands of lives over the 3 years it was in there. Miss Check, she very much she showed up at every meeting and every subcommittee meeting where we were discussing that issue, and kept on sharing her research. She worked in the field. She shared her research with us. She pointed us to additional resources to really help bolster our studies so we could best advocate for that program. So, and I also want to thank the Petersons. The Petersons, I think you demonstrated how valuable showing up to meetings, and even if you're not a member of the commission, can be. At one point, you had mentioned, you had discussed the idea of bringing up of having an officer drawing their weapon be considered use of force. And lo and behold, you brought it up for discussion at the commission. We talked about it. Police chief was listening, and the mayor was listening, and now that is considered a use of force. So, and in addition, sharing your the harassment that you experienced, that led to our study in conjunction with the audit committee of equity in recruiting and retention, and kind of finding out how we could better serve that. And I believe that's work that continues in under Minneapolis internal audit. So just by showing up to meetings, sharing ideas, sharing information, even if you're not a member on the commission, community members, you can still make a big impact, and many of you have. So I want to thank you for that. And I apologize for kind of going on this, but we have so many valuable members of the community. And please, even if you're disappointed by not being on the commission, please continue to share your ideas and your experiences, because it is valuable. Without further ado, I'll stop talking and allow our new members to share a little bit about themselves and any ideas that they're interested in exploring while on the commission. I'll just go in alphabetical order. Commissioner Abdi.
Hi, everyone. Commissioner Abdi present. I just am thankful and grateful to be here, and I'm excited to work with each and every one of you. A little bit about myself. I moved here about 5 years ago from Arizona to go to school, and I currently live in South Minneapolis. I have a background working with youth, and it's been a personal interest and professional interest of myself, so that's where I want to first start. But yeah, like I said, I'm grateful to be here, and please reach out if I can support any of you in any way.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. This is Commissioner Cynthia Jackson. I am very excited to be on this commission. Looking forward to working with everyone and finding some solutions to some problems that just won't seem to leave us alone. I am originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I've been here in Minneapolis since, I want to say, May of 1996. I stayed briefly in South Minneapolis, and I have been on the north side since 2000. I recently graduated from Metropolitan State University with a MAPL degree, which is a Master's in Advocacy and Political Leadership. So I'm hoping that I can bring some of that expertise to bear on the commission. Other than that, I'm here to listen and learn and speak up. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynnea Jacobson. I am a Minneapolis resident as of 14 years. I live in the North neighborhood, and I am very happy to be a part of this. It's long overdue. I think each and every one of us can bring forth change if we're listening to each other and we're learning from each other and we're pushing for policy changes. I think that's where we can make the biggest impact, and that's what I look forward to doing. In my previous work history, I have often participated in programs that where I'm helping to diversify the departments, and I'm in charge of community service and community events. I think that if we can get police to work with their communities and value their communities that they serve and see themselves as a community member, then they will better help protect us. And I think that's where we need to start, and I'm looking forward to implementing some of those changes.
Thank you. Commissioner Sparks.
Hello, Commissioner Jordan Sparks here. I've been a North Minneapolis resident, 4th Ward, 4th Precinct for about 4 years now. Live here with my wife and our 2 kids. Previously, I've lived in South Minneapolis. I've also lived in Phillips, and I've also lived in Oakdale, Minnesota. I just want to say that I'm very excited to be here. I feel really grateful to be a part of this group. I feel really humbled to have the opportunity. I think that the current commission is incredibly representative of the city. It's so diverse, and we're uniquely positioned at this time and place, and with this level of talent to hopefully affect some positive change. And to echo Commissioner Jackson's comments from earlier, I'm here to listen, learn, and I'm here to speak up and be engaged. So just want to thank everyone for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you to our new commissioners for sharing. The next item on the agenda is the vice chair election. We currently have a vacancy for vice chair, so it's important to fill that. However, I recognize that traditionally that chair is that position is appointed for 2 years. However, in January, we will be adding more members to the commission, and I will no longer be part of the commission. So I thought it would be a good idea to ensure that all voices of the new commission can be heard, that this appointment of vice chair last through the January 2021 chair and vice chair election. So first I'd like to bring that to a vote. We need to vote on that under our rules. So I would I put forward a motion that the term of the vice chair we elect today will last through the January 2021 election of chair and vice chair. Is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Sarah seconds.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sarah. Commissioner Pinow, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Sarah, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi, how do you vote?
Just to clarify, this is for the vice chair and the chair up until January 2021?
Nope, this is just for the vice chair. So I'm sorry, let me step back and explain a little bit more. So since I'll be serving as chair until my term ends December 31st, and one of the roles of the vice chair is to preside over meetings when there is not a chair. So what this avoids doing is having another election during the January meeting to have have an acting chair preside over just the election portion of that meeting. This will basically, the vice chair will serve as acting chair from January 1st through the meeting, through the January PCOC meeting and elections. Does that help answer your question?
It does. Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner. Aye.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Abdi. Commissioner Jackson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sparks?
Aye.
And I, Commissioner Feruzan, vote aye. Unanimously, this has passed. So the chair, or the vice chair position we're voting on now, will serve through the elections of January 2021. With that, I'd like to call on for nominations. Commissioners, you may nominate yourself, or you may nominate someone else. After that, I would give each of the nominees a chance to explain why they should serve in this role, and then we'll vote on that position. And I just want to clarify a couple things. By putting yourself in this position, you still remain eligible. Whoever is this interim vice chair will still be eligible to be nominated or nominate themselves for chair or vice chair in the January 2021 election. Does anyone have any questions about that? Commissioner Sarah, or actually, let me do this. I'll make a motion. I'll open this up for nominations, and at the same time, I will, if you have any questions, please ask them as I go around. So, Commissioner Sarah, any questions or any nominations?
Thank you. I do not have any questions. I do nominate Commissioner Jackson Pino. I think he would do a great job being interim vice chair.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we don't need any seconds for this. So, Commissioner Pino, do you have any questions, or is there anyone you would like to nominate?
I have no questions. I'll accept the nomination. Thank you.
Commissioner Abdi, do you have any questions, or would you like to nominate anyone or yourself?
Commissioner Abdi, I have no questions, and I would like to nominate Commissioner Jackson.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobson, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Cynthia Jackson?
Yep.
Okay, I'm right. I'm just kind of, we've got Commissioner Jackson Pino and Commissioner Cynthia Jackson, so I just wanted to make sure that I'm keeping track of the right first name, last names here. Commissioner Jacobson, do you have any questions, or is there anyone you would like to nominate, or would you like to nominate yourself?
I have no questions, and I would like to nominate Commissioner Jackson as well.
Okay, so as of now, Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Pino are the nominees. Commissioner Jackson, my first question is, do you accept the nomination?
I'm scared, but I'll say yes. And I
Okay.
know I have no questions.
Okay, and is there anyone you would like to nominate?
Commissioner Pino.
Okay, so and Commissioner Sparks, do you have any questions, or is there anyone you would like to nominate? You don't have, or would you like to nominate yourself? You don't have to nominate anyone.
I don't have any questions. If nobody had nominated Commissioner Cynthia Jackson, I would have nominated her. Sounds like we're okay there.
All right, so it appears that we have two nominees, both with Jackson in their names. So I'll use their full names here. One nominee is Commissioner Jackson Pino. The other nominee is Commissioner Cynthia Jackson. Commissioner Pino, can you, would you like to make a statement before we vote?
I'd be happy to. And thank you, Commissioner Jackson, for your second nomination. I appreciate that. Just to provide just a little bit of context for anyone who wasn't here for our previous elections, we didn't have any form of leadership at the beginning of this year. And I was witness to that. Luckily enough, Chair Fruzan stepped in, kind of just assumed a temporary position just for the evening until he was elected chair. This is to make sure that we don't have that similar assumption as last time. The main point of this, I do believe, is just to have someone to run the parliamentary procedure, to making sure that we have this appropriately transitioned from one leadership group to another. I'd be happy to do that. I'm familiar with the parliamentary procedure enough to make sure that we can transition on to whomever is our chair, vice chair pairing next year, and would appreciate your vote. One way or another, I think we're going to be happy and have a successful team. I'm excited to see where we head into the new year.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson Pinow. Commissioner Cynthia Jackson, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, thank you. I have served on several committees in different positions, chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary. I'm fully versed in parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rule of Orders. I don't even know why I accepted this, to be honest with you. I'm sitting here shaking in my chair at the thought of the added responsibility, but I am a firm believer in leadership through servanthood. I will serve wherever anyone would ask me to. So I'm just extremely willing to be a service to this commission and to the city of Minneapolis. Thank you, Commissioner Pinow, for your service and your willingness to serve as well. So, and I agree, like whoever takes this position, I think that we'll be happy with that. So thank you.
All right. I'm gonna now go through, ask our commissioners to vote. I'll call out your name, and please indicate whether you are voting for Commissioner Cynthia Jackson or Commissioner Jackson Pinow. And I will do my best to do this in alphabetical order. Commissioner Abdi.
Commissioner Abdi, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Cynthia Jackson.
Okay. Commissioner Sarah.
I vote for Commissioner Jackson Pinow.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson.
This is going to be confusing, is it not? I will abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobson.
I vote for Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Pinow.
I vote for myself for fear that if I abstain as well, we will reach a tie.
Okay. And Commissioner Sparks.
Commissioner Sparks, I will vote for Commissioner Cynthia Jackson.
Okay. And as I'm the outgoing chair, I am going to abstain from voting, since I think this is a decision that should be left to the group who will continue to go on. So it appears that we have 3 votes for Commissioner Cynthia Jackson and 2 votes for Commissioner Jackson Pinow. Thank you both for accepting your nominations, and the Commissioner Cynthia Jackson will be serving as interim vice chair through the January 2021 chair and vice chair election. Thank you very much to all. And I just want to make sure I've got my tallies right. Miss Lee, can you confirm that I've tallied everything correctly?
Yep, our tallies are the same. We have 3 for Commissioner Cynthia Jackson, 2 for Commissioner Jackson Pinow, and then 2 abstain votes.
Okay. So the next item on our list is an update from civil rights staff on our pending studies. It's my understanding that that the city staff has continued to work while we did not have a quorum, and that they've made progress. I've asked the city staff to give brief updates, and to save the detailed, since they're at the stage where all of these, all three studies are currently in the audit committee, that they would be, that the main, the detailed update be given in the next audit committee meeting. So that would be after the chair is elected and appoints commissioners to the subcommittees. And so I expect that would be in January as well. But this will just be to get a base update on where they might be in getting what they've done in the time that we've been without quorum. So I believe Mr. Hawkins, are you giving the update?
Chair Ferguson, yes, I'm more than happy to. So sorry, everybody, my camera's off here. I've got a toddler screaming upstairs, so you'll have to bear with me. I've got headphones on. If it gets too loud, let me know. Anyways, okay, so to some of the outstanding studies, one of the first ones we had, there's a series of studies going on in the city right now around 911 interactions and then dispatch interactions by police department. One of the things that Chair Ferguson and the PCOC had asked for was, kind of to do the beginning exploration of a study regarding stops that are considered discretionary. So it's something where you're not dispatched by 911, you're not flagged down by a civilian, you're not, it's kind of you're out on patrol and the stop's initiated that way. We were able to pull the data set. We were able to sit down with some of the data people in the city that are responsible for kind of all the dashboards we have up and understanding what pulls from where and kind of what the backstory is for everything. And from that, isolate what I think is a more representative sample of potential discretionary stops. There's definitely a couple of issues that we've identified that I think will be valuable to sit down with the audit committee and kind of talk through those and figure out the best ways to proceed. There's somewhere, I think just a good example. One of them is the race data of, the race and gender components of this data, pose some challenges because if it was a vehicle stop, even if it was discretionary, it's not clear if there's a consistent application of identifying the race or gender of the individual because there's just one spot. It's not like you identify multiple passengers. So if something happens where a vehicle stopped and the passengers searched or arrested, it's not clear if the race data is based on the driver of the vehicle or that individual. The same with gender. So that's all stuff that I think is worth digging into just to kind of see if there's a way that we can kind of comb through this to get a consistent method of reporting so that when we do this, we don't have to have this stage of the process. But I feel like that's been going fairly well. We've got staff that are also ready. There's a number of stops, or not stops, a number of data points that we've identified that we feel like are more than likely they're foot patrols, like either foot or mounted, or it's a patrol that's not in a in a vehicle with the computer that they can enter everything in. And it's like the way that this is, we kind of came to this conclusion is that it's missing certain components that seems like, would be missing if somebody had initiated a stop but didn't have something with them at that moment to enter in this data. So I think that's something we want to discuss with the group as well and kind of determine how we want to move forward with this. And, do we want to pull a representative sample and have staff go into the computer-aided dispatch records, the public information management system, and and to just kind of get behind what might be missing from these and see if there's any trends that are there. So that's the discretionary stops, the coaching stuff. As far as this was something that was kind of brought forward, just sort of an update. There's actually a study that was done, I believe, in late 2017 on coaching for the PCOC. And so what I've actually done is sort of pulled that and kind of we've been looking through that data to kind of see what how can we do a continuation of that work. And what would that entail as far as a lift from staff? And I think now that we have some more people that have access to these systems, it should become a little bit easier. But I know one of the things they had done, they looked at how much time does it the process take? What does the average report look like in terms of what's the length of the responses? Is it something where it's just a 1 page or a half a page? Or are they looking at this more in depth and it's a 4 to 5 pages of of a write up? Do they talk to the complainant? Do they not? And so all of that was valuable information. And so it kind of seemed like a logical opportunity to look to see if we can build out any of those components. Knowing that staff and weren't like a lot of the or not staff, sorry, commissioners. A lot of you obviously weren't present for that study. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of go through that and see what value there might be in picking up some of those pieces and maybe building them out to kind of encompass more recent data that's available, and then kind of figure out what we have the capacity for, and go from there to see if that's a value. As to I know that the collaborative study with the Trans Equity Committee, I don't know, Maria, if you wanted to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I'm happy to share a couple updates from that. So the last time that the audit committee had an update about the study that is being done in collaboration with the Trans Equity Council, which is on hate crime reporting, and the question kind of is around whether or not hate crimes against trans and gender nonconforming people are being underreported. So we had presented some initial information in the last couple of months. We've connected with the former research analyst in the Office of Police Conduct Review, just to try to learn more about the process of doing an audit. And he had reminded us that his very first audit that he completed took around 18 months. So we were very lucky in the last couple of years to have a very industrious person in the Civil Rights Department who had really fine-tuned a lot of his processes to get through these studies. So we are just thankful for the patience as we are learning more about the process and learning how to look for the right things in the data. So we are looking forward to having more of a deep update for you all at the next audit subcommittee meeting. We've also been reaching out to some community partners to try to get just a fuller picture of the background information that needs to be involved in this study.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lee and Mr. Hawkins. I'm going to open it up to questions from our commissioners. Commissioners, if you don't have questions, that's fine. If you're on the audit committee, if you're appointed to the audit committee by the new chair in January, you'll be getting a more detailed update with a proposed methodology for the study. And if that gets approved by the audit subcommittee, it'll come to the commission as a whole to approve. So even if you're not on the audit subcommittee, you will get an opportunity to weigh in and influence the methodology. But I just wanted to clarify one thing, Mr. Hawkins, with the coaching study you had mentioned going kind of revisiting some of the metrics that we looked at in the past study, but I think that's in addition to kind of the parameters we directed, because I think the parameters we directed were kind of what is coaching, when is it used, and is it kind of verifying that it is used for the type of violations, A-level violations that it should be, and then opening up, and then what's the policy, finding out what the policy reasons behind MPD's and I guess the city's use of coaching, and determining, and I think the recommendations that would come later from the PCOC would be whether the city MPD should continue coaching as a practice, and if so, really taking a closer look at what violations should be eligible for coaching versus further investigation. Is what you kind of were talking about, the metrics from the old study, is that in addition to those things?
Yep, and I apologize for that again. I'm kind of forgetting that not everybody's inside my head right now. So no, you're completely right. I think one of the valuable things to do from this is, yeah, of course, addressing every one of those things that you mentioned and kind of seeing how, if to the degree that we're able, how is this transformed since we last looked at it? What are some of the things that would have qualified under that category versus then versus now, and kind of and again, it might beg the question, if there were changes, how come? So yes, right. all of those will absolutely be a major part of this.
Excellent, because I think that's data that would probably, and again, maybe I'm getting too in the weeds for the moment, but that's data that would be useful for assessing whether coaching is meeting the intended policy purpose. So like if we're looking at the stated policy purpose behind coaching, that on why MPD and the city, why it's a good tool to have, we can see if it's producing the results that we would expect such a tool to have. Great. So I'll go in alphabetical order again. Commissioner Abdi, do you have questions about any of these, about anything in this update?
I do not at this time.
Commissioner Sarah, do you have questions about anything in this update?
Yes, in this regard to the coaching policy, or excuse me, coaching study, several meetings ago, so this has been some months, there was discussion within the city of having a certain, I think they called it a working group, where there would be city leaders at the table, including, HR, the police, city attorney, like all the interested parties, if you will. And at that time, which has been several months, the working group hadn't started up yet, but there was a consensus of this group that if there were to be such a working group, that PCOC should have a seat at that table and be part of that discussion. So I'm wondering, perhaps Mr. Hawkins can answer this, perhaps not, if there's any update, if that working group is in fact taking place, any update?
Commissioner Sarah, no, to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe I was familiar with it. But I mean, which doesn't mean anything. It could have been a discussion that happened elsewhere, but I have not heard any updates on it. The last, I think, communication I had seen around this topic was the communication from the city attorney's office in response to Chair Feruzan's request.
Commissioner Sarah, any follow-up questions?
None. Thank you very much. Thanks for the update. It's helpful.
And Commissioner Sarah, you had mentioned that you had talked to, I think, either a city council member. Who was that who said that there would be, he would put together a work group, or he or she would put together a work group?
It was actually an email correspondence from, goodness, I believe Casey Carl and a few others were on that email. And I don't have the email in front of me. I apologize. I don't remember who all. It was there were multiple city leaders or office heads that were involved in that conversation.
Do you know if there were any council members we can ping to see? I know council is busy, but if it's who if we could identify who is not doing something.
Well, I believe Councilmember Andrew Johnson was the one who kind of put me into that discussion, and Councilmember Palmisano spoke at this commission meeting at the same time that this discussion was happening, and Councilmember Palmisano was the one who said that PCOC should have a seat at that table whenever that table was open, So perhaps Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Palmisano would be good places to start.
Okay. All right. Any further questions?
No, but again, thanks. It's really helpful to have these updates, and it's just really nice to get back to work. So this is great. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, any questions for Mr. Hawkins or Ms. Lee?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Jacobson, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Commissioner Pino, any questions?
I have none. Thank you for the update.
Commissioner Sparks, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, and I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins and Ms. Lee. I do want to thank, while we're on the topic of the city work, I do want to thank the city staff, especially Commissioner Director Jafar and Mr. Hawkins, and especially Ms. Lee. I don't know how much the public public knows, but Miss Maria Lee is, I know our commissioners probably get a sense of this, but she is really kind of the backbone of our commission. She is the engine that makes us able to work. She keeps us updated on the research that's going on, and she helped us seamlessly transition into doing these meetings remotely, which I think she's directly responsible for kind of the inclusivity we've been able to move towards in these meetings. Like I said before, when we were meeting in person, it might be really hard for someone who lived far away from City Hall, especially if you're relying on public transportation, to come to a meeting, or if you were a single parent, or if you were just someone who might have childcare issues at the time. It would be very challenging to meaningfully, not just as a commissioner, but as a regular resident of Minneapolis, participate in these meetings. So I just can't thank Miss Lee enough for all her work in making us more accessible and more inclusive as a commission for our commissioners, and as well as for the public as a whole. With that, Ms. Lee mentioned the former analyst who worked with the commission. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank him as well. His name is Mr. Ryan Patrick. He is now the interim head of internal audit, I believe, but he all the research projects that you'd seen us do in the past, he was the one doing all the research and allowing us to guide it and shape it, but he was doing all the heavy lifting and refining our processes so that we would have credible work product. And it really helped us build legitimacy with, I believe, the public and with MPD. There was a time where MPD might not have taken all the recommendations that come out of a body like this, but now they do, and they take it seriously. And I think that's because of the excellent work product that was put out by the members of the commission, but also on the back of the work being done by Mr. Patrick. So if you're listening, Mr. Patrick, thank you. You are I have no idea how you've done all that you have done, but it's incredible. And internal audit is fortunate to have you, and we're fortunate to have a partner like that who in internal audit, because I know we frequently can partner with internal audit to collaborate on studies. So it's a very good resource. And once again, thank you to the city staff. I know that you are short-staffed. Mr. Hawkins, how many investigators do you currently have? Or how many case investigators do you currently have?
As of right now, we have two full-time case investigators, so two full-time civilian case investigators within OPCR. Obviously, IA has their own complement, but there's two civilian case investigators, and there's one, again, like the classification, still case investigator, but we consider them to be an intake investigator. And then we have one of those positions that's frozen. So obviously, the case investigators are responsible for the more deep dive investigations of cases. But I would say approximately 100% of the complaints that are filed, whether people identify that they would prefer a civilian or a sworn investigator, or they select no preference, the intake investigator for the City of Minneapolis, or for the City of Minneapolis Office of Police Conduct Review, is responsible for 100% of those intakes before they're routed out to respective investigators. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer for a very short question.
Okay, well, so we have roughly 3 investigators. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. And we have one that's frozen, and it's also worth noting that one of our intake investigator is out on personal leave right now for a new addition to the family. So hopefully she's okay with me sharing that. But we have so we've had to kind of move staff around to help us in that area. So,
well, thank you for doing that. And I just want to point out for new commissioners that we are, in my personal opinion, I don't want to speak for the commission, is that the Office of Police Conduct Review is not appropriately staffed for the number of complaints that it receives or the number of sworn officers that it has. If you compare it to similar civilian organizations or civilian kind of police oversight organizations like Portland, which has receives roughly 100 less complaints than MPD per year, and has roughly the same number of sworn officers. They have 8 investigators versus the 3 that we have. They have 3 analysts, whereas we have 1, which is subject to a hiring freeze now. And even comparing it to a city like Cleveland, which has maybe a third of the complaints, they have 10 civilian investigators compared to our 3. So it's troubling, and I hope that City Council funds the Office of Police Conduct Review better to create more positions. I was a little disappointed that Councilmember Andrew Johnson made a motion to potentially take away 2 additional case investigators that were allocated to MPD. Fortunately, I don't believe his motion passed, but in the future, I would hope that Mr. Johnson would actually look at the data that comes out of the city, talk to city staff when he is making those decisions, because if his motion had passed, it might have made it even more difficult for civilian oversight to exist and to actually be meaningful in the city of Minneapolis. It's disappointing that a council member would not kind of even ask city staff for data relative to that relates to staffing and complaints before making a motion like that. So I can say things like that now since it's my last meeting. But without further ado, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is case summaries. So commissioners and public, if you're not familiar, every week or every month, we look at case summaries, which are, we look at 10 case summaries, and we pick 3 of those that we'll review next month. And they'll city staff will provide a more detailed summary so we could look at them. And it's opportunity to understand more about kind of the complaint process, understand more about police procedure, just kind of see, take a more detailed look at individual cases. Generally, there isn't any action this body can take on these cases other than use it as a data point, but it is a valuable data point. And I do apologize to our current commissioners. I think in July, we suspended looking at these because I thought it would be useful to spend this time, like, doing some of the other things, like, getting elected officials. But in hindsight, I think I forgot that you hadn't had the opportunity to look at these data points frequently. So I apologize. And that's why I've kind of put it here. So hopefully it becomes, continues to be a regular part of that. But without that, let's turn to the case summary for 2012-02. And Mr. Hawkins, who is available to speak on that?
I'm sorry, I muted myself. I believe, Maria, do you have the background on these? So, like, in the ability to speak to them?
Yes. So I
did not write these up. I will say that these were written up about 7 months ago, when you initially selected them in March. So I'm happy to kind of like talk through what is in the documents that were sent to you. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Oh, okay.
Instead of, why don't we see if anyone has questions on them, and then it may not be necessary to talk about these specific cases, but rather just address the questions, if there are any. Since we don't have the investigators who wrote these cases on the line, typically we would have the investigator who wrote the summaries available. I'll just go around and see if any commissioners have questions on either 20 on any of the cases. Basically 2012-02, 2012-03, 2012-01, and then we'll go back around and talk about each of them individually. Commissioner Abdi, do you have any questions about those case summaries? Numbered 2012-02, 03, and 01?
Nope, no questions.
Commissioner Sarah, do you have any questions about those?
I do. And well, first I have a general question, and so that might eradicate some of my other questions.
Sure,
go ahead. And forgive me, but it has been since March, so forgive me for being rusty. Is this all of the information that we're going to get, or are we going to see, a few of them mentioned a video? Are we going to see the video? Are we going to review additional reports or what have you? Or is this it?
This is it. So this is a summary of data. Since all our meetings are public, they summarize it so that kind of data that might be private is can be summarized in a form that allows it to be public, subject to our open meeting laws. So this is it. We don't see video or look at the underlying documentation. And if I think if city staff member might be able to give a more detailed explanation on why, but that's my experience with the practice of this.
And Commissioner Sarah, did you have anything to? Otherwise, I'll happily speak to the part that I can.
Oh, please.
Okay.
You'll probably answer my question.
No, it's okay. So yeah, in the event, again, these are randomly selected from cases that have been closed within a certain amount of time. If there's a case that's selected where there was some, qualifying as discipline, pursuant with the Minnesota Data Practices Act, like that case would come across, at least my understanding of it, with everything, obviously all that would be public as well, because that's the way the case was resolved. But in those situations, it would come through with everything that was affiliated with the case. However, the ones that if it's dismissed, if it's because it's considered an administrative enforcement function, it's like that kind of HR adjacent side which kind of limits it's subject to the data practices stuff that revolves around all of that for requests. So there's not a lot else that I believe can be shared. So, I think the idea when they had done this in the past, I know there's been a couple of research and studies, not a couple, I think a lot of them have been like something that's come from this process just by going through and kind of reading like various case synopses and expanded summaries that are available, even with redacted data, kind of following through the process and seeing what the allegations were and what has happened. It's an opportunity to identify any areas where it seems like there's, like a consistent pattern or practice or trend that's occurring, and like basically kind of ask for a deeper dive into that, like timing topic as a whole, as opposed to the individual case, because obviously, since it's the way that they're classified, it's like we can't really go back and litigate or hear like those cases, but it's an opportunity to identify patterns and practices.
Commissioner Sarah, you're muted. Do you have any follow-up?
Excuse me. I thought I was doing better on technology, so I'm sorry. Do I still get technology points? How can we identify a pattern or a practice if we're only looking at, 3 cases out of, I know you all receive hundreds of complaints. would it be possible to get like statistical data? For example, one question I had, so sorry to put two questions together, but one question I had is, for all three of these, how are other cases like these resolved? Like, are they typically resolved if they're sustained? Are they typically resolved at A level or B level or C level? Or I just don't have any points of comparison, so it's hard for me to like think about what might be a pattern or what might be a problem.
So I can answer that a little bit. So when I started on the commission, we had what was called the issue tracking queue, which was literally a Excel spreadsheet where we kept track of, after looking at complaints, we categorized issues and put them into a queue. I apologize. I think I'm having a toddler tantrum in the background. But since then, I know Mr. Patrick, one thing we were working on in 2019 with Mr. Patrick, and so unfortunately, I don't, it hasn't continued, and I think we need to hire someone with the technical expertise to do it, was we were building, expanding on that dashboard. So if you look at I believe it's still currently housed on the policy and procedure portion of our website. I can send out a link, and Maria, perhaps we could put it on the agenda. But it is kind of a summary of all the things. So you could look and see the volume of complaints, and it categorizes the complaints, and where there is a complaint summary available, it links to the complaint summary. What we had been working on in audit was expanding that so that it would include all complaint information on all complaints that come in, and I do believe it includes a lot. So if you look at it now, but that's something that the commission and hopefully if the city will fund the positions for the OPCR, I think that I agree that would be a very valuable tool, and that was something we were working on, and that kind of got stalled out with the hiring freezes. But I think if you look at it, it is, and I wish I could share my screen. It is a valuable tool, because you can look and categorize by kind of general complaint type, and then I think you can winnow down to the policy, and then look at the complaint number, see where the summary is. So yeah, I think that is the kind of thing you're looking for, basically a database of all the complaints. And so that is something that I think the commission can continue to work on, and help kind of shape how you want to sort through that data with the city once they develop the technical capability or the position to finish building that out. But I know it was in the works.
Okay, thank you. That does help.
And, I'm sorry, Commissioner, sir, go ahead and finish.
No, why don't you finish on this point, because then I had like a specific question for each case. So okay. Let's finish this.
I was going to say too. I mean, like this is actually something like the database he's mentioning, and like I'll have Maria find the link and we'll like throw it in there. But it's great, and like we've actually already like contacted IT, because like once we again, just like you're all kind of coming into the work, like our new members, like Maria and I have obviously like not been in the support role for as long. So, as we've kind of stumbled across some of this stuff, it's, realize its value. Like we've been kind of trying to work with IT and fill those gaps that just aren't there. Where, we had the person that maintained this that moved on. We've had people in IT that were kind of our point people for this that have moved on. So I think, finding the people that can help us sort of reverse engineer, like, how all of this was linked behind the scenes so that we can get it updated to contain, as much as it possibly can is super valuable. So we'll find the link. Yeah, and I think it's a great resource. But, you're right. It's like it's coming in fresh. It's hard to, like, if we haven't done this process before. So it's like, how do you identify trends if you don't know? And like, I think this is a really, just having looked at it briefly, I think it's a really good tool. But even just not having like, series, like the experience I guess Chair Feruzan has had with like looking at multiple week, like month over month of case studies, if there is something that seems questionable, and it's like, well, I don't understand why this went this route. I mean, I feel like that in and of itself is, that has the potential to be like something that's like explored. Just to kind of get that base there. And so that's not me speaking to you, like that's just me speaking to like even my own experience coming into this. So hopefully that's helpful, but I'll yield.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful to know. It's a kind of stinks that you're so severely understaffed, and for what it's worth, I have advocated very strongly for funding OPCR and Civil Rights Department for this very reason. So thank you, Mr. Hawkins. If I still have some time, I do have questions about, like, very granular questions about the specific cases. So I believe, Chair Feruzan, you asked about 2012-02 case study, and then it was case summary data number 3, right? Where's that one? So as far as I can tell with that one, the body-worn camera video was dispositive. There was an allegation, and then individuals reviewed the body camera video and said, this was exonerated the officer, that nothing, there was no basis. So I'm understanding that we're not going to see the video. That I just want to raise this issue and hopefully further discussion with future PCOC meetings that makes it hard, well, impossible for me really to kind of offer any comment on this in order to be fair to the complainant and also to the officer. I guess I'd want to see that video, before I made any kind of decision or anything. So just pointing that out is a difficulty. And perhaps what this does is raise an issue for us as members of the PCOC that we should have greater access to this kind of data. Of course, following state laws around data practices, but that's what we're going to need in order to do oversight. And I did have questions related to the other two. So 20-12-03 case study, which is case summary data number 10. I did have some comments on this one. Well, I'm not going to get any more information. So no more questions. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for providing me that archived version of the MPD manual. Once you provided that, I was able to track what the sustained allegations were. And for those particular sustained allegations, the discipline matrix designates that as a level B violation with a disciplinary range of a 10 to 20 hours of suspension. But yet this was designated as coaching and non-disciplinary. So my question, which won't be answered today, is what happened? Why was this coaching and not a B-level discipline of a 10 or perhaps even 20-hour suspension? We're not going to get the facts on this particular case, but I do think this highlights the importance of the coaching study that we discussed earlier in the meeting. And we want to make sure that coaching is being used appropriately and being used evenly so that some officers don't sort of skate by with coaching when they should be getting a B-level suspension, and some, officers are getting like hit with B-level suspensions and never giving the opportunity of coaching. Both things could be true. And then I have the same thing about the last remaining summary, which is number 2012-01 case summary number 8. Again, checking it against the archived manual. This should be, as far as I can tell, B-level violation, at least I think so. And there are some facts here that make me think that this should definitely not qualify for coaching. In particular, that the officer apparently, and I'm just saying apparently because I don't have the file, but it was sustained that the officer used inappropriate language towards victims of domestic abuse and did not file a police report in a case of domestic abuse. And that's a very serious transgression. And there was an entire case study done by OPCR about that problem within the police force, that they don't take domestic violence seriously and they don't file police reports. So again, I don't have the full case. I don't know what happened here, but it seems like this is an inappropriate one for coaching, and since it was sustained, I'm just going to make the assumption that it happened in the way described, and that discipline would have been appropriate here. So those are all my remarks. Thanks for giving me so much time.
Thank you, Commissioner Sarah. And I just want to point out to you and the commissioners that generally when we do have the investigator or the city staff who wrote the summary, they are able to provide some additional background information and may be able to answer those questions. So please continue to ask those questions, because I do think that a lot of times they are able to give more detail about it once like on a lot of the questions we do ask. And you know, you mentioned the Data Practice Act. I think one of the other things would be the one of the laws that are in play are the open meeting laws. So I guess I would ask Mr. Fossey if you could work with city staff to see if we could make sure that we're providing as much information as we can to the commissioners during our public meetings. That'd be great. So thank you. Commissioner Sarah, do you have any additional questions? And I know you're not getting answers at the moment, but I think they're good points to bring up and for the public to hear and for city staff to hear so they can prepare for next time.
Thanks for giving me so much of your time. No, I think that's everything. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. And it's not my time. It's all yours. So, and it's the commission. So, take as much time as you want for all the commissioners. This is important work. So don't not ask questions if you have them, just to save time. Commissioner Jacobson.
Well, I think the first thing is I am having a hard time here following along because I'm not sure if I received all of the documents, or perhaps they are here and I just can't find them. I did see I have a summary of some of the cases, but it's very, very little. So I'm wondering if that's what Commissioner Sarah was talking about when she said there's not a lot of detail. But there were some things that she mentioned that I did not see, so I wasn't sure if I have everything pulled up here.
So one place to go is if you go to the our underlying agenda. You can access that in the on the Minneapolis calendar. There are links, and so if the public's listening along, they're under this agenda item. There are links. One is for case synopses. That's 12/20/20, and those are the summaries, or the kind of this. They're a list of 10 cases that we will vote on, so that we can review them next month. And then underneath those, there's something called case summaries. There are 3 of them, numbered 2012-02, 2012-03, and 2012-01. Those are the case summaries. So those are the cases that we voted on last time we did this. So back in March, and so now we're just getting a look at them and asking kind of, so that based on, we voted on them based on the brief synopses, and the city staff wrote more detailed summaries to review. So if you look in the agenda, you should be able to find them there. And if you'd like, I can return to you in a few minutes. I'll go through the other commissioners so you have a chance to pull those up.
Okay. Yeah, return to me because I'm still not seeing it, but
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I do have a couple of things I'd like to have cleared up. The documents that I received through the email, I have the 20-12 01 02 and 03. I have those, and I also have a document that is public case synopses.
Yes.
And I'm not quite sure. Are they supposed to correlate somehow to these case summary documents that we're looking at tonight?
No, the case summaries that we're looking at tonight will not correlate with the case synopses. The case synopses will correlate with, you're going to select from the case synopses, you'll select 3 cases for which you'll get the summaries at the January meeting.
All right, I understand that. All right, thank you. I was just a little confused there for a second.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
Other than that, well, I did have another question and it just let me go. So if I remember it, I'll come back to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Pino?
Hello. I'm glad Commissioner Sarah brought up the main concerns. I was speaking with her just shortly before this, and I agree that that there's some major concerns, particularly with case summary data 10. Another point, just because I'm unfamiliar with the terminology, it says here in the PIMS summary of evidence that the victim completed, apologies, the domestic abuse supplement and medical release form. I believe, I don't want to make the assumption, but I assume that that is the documents that the complainant believes that she was forced or coerced to fill out. I'd love for someone to confirm that for me or tell me otherwise. And she was given a quote blue card. Could you please,
Mr.
anyone?
Commissioner Pino, can you let me see if the city staff can answer your first question, then you can ask your follow-up. Ms. Lee, Mr. Hawkins, can you clarify that point? Are you guys able to answer that for Commissioner Pino?
This is Ms. Lee. Andrew, stop me if I can't share this, but I did actually read this case. So yes, your Commissioner Pino, your question around what document she had felt coerced to fill out was kind of that follow-up, like medical document.
And again, to the extent that you're able to share this with the public, can we just get an understanding of these medical release forms, whether or not they're required by city ordinance, that the police officer have these filled out before they're allowed to relieve someone from being detained by the police in any way? Just understanding whether or not it was a point of discretion by the police officer, or whether or not it was mandatory for this release form to be signed.
This is Ms. Lee, Commissioner Pino. I believe in my reading of the case documents that because of the nature of the case, because of the nature of the domestic abuse call, the documents had to be filled out.
Okay. And can you, my other question is, what is a blue card? I'm unfamiliar with that terminology, and I assume other members of the public are too.
This is Ms. Lee, Commissioner Pino. I actually don't know what a blue card is either. So sorry that I don't know off the top of my head, but we can get that answer for you, I'm sure. Oh, Lynnea, Commissioner Jacobson, I see your hand is raised.
I believe a blue card is the little card that they hand you after you get done with your case and the officer takes your information, writes the report. They give you a blue card with your case number on it and their badge number and the officer so that you can follow up on the case.
Okay, that is good to know. I've never heard it referenced before in these summaries.
And Commissioner Pino, I was going to say that this is Andrew Hawkins with the Civil Rights Department. I'm just going to like add on really quickly. Yep, the blue card is what officers, MPD officers, should be giving to people after an interaction. It's whatever the police equivalent of a how's my driving. It gives them all the information on how to file a complaint. It has a reference number on it. It might not be the specific case number because at that point it wouldn't be entered into the system, but it does at least give them the opportunity to file and then have kind of a number to reference going forward. So hopefully that helps.
Great. Yeah, and just another point that I just want to make sure that that I'm not crazy here. I have the policy manual on one side of my computer while I'm looking at the particular MDP policies and procedures that are referenced, and I just happened to look at these. It doesn't seem as though they're referencing correctly. This is not saying that I think that they're wrong. It's just I'm reading things that don't seem to be germane to the topic at hand, and I do not believe I have an archived version. I'm looking at the page right now and it says last updated June 16th, 2020.
Commissioner Pino, I would love to answer that question. This is Ms. Lee. Because the case that you're looking at it occurred in 2019. It doesn't act the policies that are referenced have since been updated. I believe it was this year. It was this summer of 2020. So some of those numbers have shifted around. So if you and I had sent an email out to all commissioners, and apologies for the late notice on this, and thank you, Commissioner Sarah, for catching this as well in your review of the documents. So you just have to refer to an archived version of the MPD handbook to find the right the numbers from the right time. And if you need any help doing that, I'm happy to resend some of those links. But I use the Wayback Machine. It's the easiest way for me, but we can also capture some PDFs and send them your way if that's easier.
Okay, sorry, I missed that email. I will make sure to use that trick next time we're looking at these if they're older cases. And I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Pino. Commissioner Sparks?
Yes, I have no specific questions on the case summaries. My questions were asked the questions I would have asked were already asked by Commissioners Sarah and Pino, and I think they were answered, so thanks everyone for that. I do want to, maybe I'm just echoing previous comments, but I felt it important to say that I think greater access to videos and documentation, et cetera, would be helpful. I'm very interested in that, the aforementioned coaching study. I think that 2012-03 is a good example of how some of that information could be useful. I know that there exists definitely a public perception that issues with officers or complaints and so forth might have a tendency to be hidden, if you will, through these coaching opportunities rather than other potential discipline methods, and that public perception might be supported by a study that Commissioner Sarah mentioned. And in order to look into that further, hypothetically, if we were going to investigate that, look into it further, these documents only tell us so much, so having access to more information would be really helpful. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Sparks. And Commissioner Jacobson, I'll return to you if you have any questions.
Actually, no, I do not. I was able to find the documents. Thank you.
Thank you. And these are all great questions. I think that's part of the value of seeing these case summaries is just learning and getting used to terminology and the different systems that MPD uses, such as PIMS or CAPERS reports. It's good for like just kind of understanding the lingo that's used in addition to the more substantive questions that to understand like why we got how and why we got to an outcome that we did. So again, don't hesitate to ask any questions during these times, because I know that if you have those questions, it's certainly something that a member of the public would have. And I think that's one of the values of that. And again, I apologize for our not new commissioners, Commissioner Sarah and Commissioner Pinow, for suspending that, because as someone who had been on the commission for a few years, I neglected to think of that type of value add that it brings to a new to like a new commissioner, especially just like getting acclimated with the lingo and seeing how cases go. So my apologies, and hopefully you can learn from my missteps there. All right, I don't have any questions. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is a selection of 3 cases from the case synopses. So what I'll do is I'll go through each of those I'll go to each commissioner one by one, and you will select 3 case numbers from the public case synopses. There are 10 of them. State the numbers that you would like to review. Miss Lee is going to keep track of it, and then the 3 cases that receive the most votes the city staff will prepare case summaries based on the 3 cases we select. So you'll be able to look further into those cases. I can go a little out of order, just to give, since this is a new process for the commissioners. And I will go to Commissioner Sarah. What 3 cases do you select?
I select 1, 2, and 4 out of the list of 10. And the reason I select them is as follows. So in number 1, the allegation should be a B-level violation under the discipline matrix. So I would like to know why it was selected for coaching rather than discipline. So that's the question I have. And for number 2, I'm always interested when the civilian review panel, or excuse me, the review panel makes one finding and the police department does the polar opposite, does a flip and exonerates an officer. So I would like to look at that one more closely. And finally, number 4, again, this allegation was sustained. It should be a B level discipline on the discipline matrix. So I'm wondering why it went to coaching. So I choose 1, 2, and 4.
Thank you, Commissioner Sarah. Commissioner Pinow. And just to clarify, if you would like to explain why, please do, but don't feel obligated to explain why you're selecting them. If we do get to a tie, I'll do a tiebreaker by asking someone to explain why they voted one way or another. So if you have if you want to share, feel free to. But for our new commissioners, don't feel obligated to do so. If you're just interested in the case, because that's fine as well. Commissioner Pinow.
Yes, and simply because the first time I was part of this, I was a little overwhelmed. So I will explain mine. I won't normally do so, just in essence of saving time. I will choose numbers 1, 2, and 6. Number 1 and 2 along similar veins of Commissioner Sarah. Number 6, it's a, again, not exactly similar, but somewhat similar on-duty accident with a city vehicle as number 1. And I'd just like to be able to see the two of them at the same time to see why one was a coaching instance when, it was a moving situation, and then the other one was referred to training where the accident seemed to be involving a parked vehicle.
Thank you, Commissioner Pino. Commissioner Abdi?
I would like to review cases 4, 3, and 2.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
I would like to review as well case number 2, 4, and 3.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jacobson?
Well, I too was reading all of them and decided that I would like to review cases 2, 3, and 4 also. And the reason why I chose this is because it seems like all 3 of these cases appear to be a mishandling and misuse of evidence. And I think that needs to be looked at more thoroughly.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sparks?
Would like to review cases 1, 2, and 4. Case 1 is of particular personal importance to me. I mean, there were a number of vehicle-related ones on here, but we don't see a lot of police patrols on the north side. But when I do, I feel that I invariably see them violating normal traffic rules, once including a way that affected me. So I just have a particular interest in that case.
Okay. Well, since I will tentatively abstain if we have a majority. Miss Lee, do we have 3 that three that are the top vote getters, or do we have a tie for 4 or more?
I just need I mismarked Commissioner Pino's vote, so I would just love for him to restate his top 3.
1, 2, 6.
Okay, let me just do the math quick. Okay, it looks like you will be reviewing. No, we do have a tie. So case number 1 had received 3 votes. Case number 2 had received 6 votes. Case number 3 received 3 votes. Case number 4 received 5 votes, and case number 6 received 1 vote. So that means that we need to split a tie between case 1 and case 3, and then case 2 and 4 we will definitely be writing up for you.
All right. Well, I am interested in case 1, so I will vote for case 1 and abstain on the rest to break that tie.
Okay, wonderful. Well, then we will, city staff will write up case 1, 2, and 4 for your January meeting, and we'll be sure to have the staff who works on writing these up present to speak more to your questions, and apologies that we didn't have that staff member here tonight. And yeah, we'll also be sure to get you these documents a little bit earlier in advance so you have more time to really dive into the details.
And for our commissioners, I apologize. One of the reasons that you didn't get the documents potentially until yesterday was because I did not finalize the agenda until yesterday. So I was I was on time, but I could have been earlier. So in the future, you will likely get those, hopefully by the weekend before our regular meeting. And I, so now, before we make a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank all of you for taking your time to be on this commission. I'd ask that you stay dedicated. I think the most important thing that we can do as commissioners, number one, is be present, show up to the meetings. I think that's when the public gets most disappointed, when there are commissioners, and it's happened in the past where there have been commissioners who, with all good intentions, joined the commission, but then have stopped showing up because life gets in the way, right? But this is something that I know that you are all dedicated. Please build in the time to do this, and build in the time to review the agenda and the relevant documents ahead of time, so that when you come in, when we do have methodologies for you to review and research and studies to approve, that you've read it, so you could ask meaningful questions and move the work forward. I'd also say, I think the best attributes of commissioners, and especially a chair and vice chair, and I don't possess all of these attributes, but I hopefully I've recognized where I've failed. But I think it's important to build relationships, not just amongst each other, but with city staff and with elected officials, to we don't wield a hammer in our oversight work. We don't have the ability to force MPD, to force the city to do anything. What we do wield is a paintbrush. We can influence, and I think the better relationships we can build. And I neglected to include the community. The better relationships we could build with the community, the elected officials, and our city staff. We've all got important information to share and roles to play in this, and we need to get as many people to the table to talk about these ideas. There is no one solution to public safety and policing. I wish it was that easy. It's not. There are a lot of different ways in which the public are affected by police work. Some of it is police misconduct related, and we should do work on that. Some of it is also how effective are police at doing their jobs, like with our domestic response study. And so you should do work on that. So look at all the ways, and I'm glad that we have people in the commission who have had negative interactions with MPD, who have had bad interactions with MPD, because we haven't always had that perspective on the commission. So the more ways we can look at how MPD interacts with the community, either in how can we help MPD be more productive at solving crime, that's part of our work too. It's not all merely how do we get more discipline issued, for example. It's a combination of everything to make it a more effective police department. What we're trying to do is create and shape a police department into something and an entity that reflects our community values. So and I know there are times where things have gotten tense on our last even at our last commission meeting. And I know there was a lot of some community members had a lot of issue with the most recent appointment process, but I want to remind everyone that everyone who's attending this meeting, everyone who is a commissioner right now, they're here because they do care, they want to make a difference, and they're taking steps forward to get to that goal. So please remember that people are acting with the best intentions towards the same goal. So please be gentle. I know it sounds corny, but be gentle with each other. I know I haven't been the best at that, but please be better than me at that, and support each other in doing your work. You don't always have to agree, but you should listen to each other and support each other. So thank you. And with that, I would I would hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Sarah.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second from Commissioner Pino.
All right. Since we have to vote on it, Commissioner Abdi,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarah,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
Commissioner Pino.
Aye, and thank you, Chair Feruzan, for your leadership.
Thank you. And I, Commissioner Feruzan, vote aye. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you to the public for listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you,
This
everyone.
now concludes the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission. We will stop recording now. The recording will be available on YouTube, on the city's YouTube channel at a later date.